Welcome back, everybody, to the David Seaton Show. We are so pleased that you are joining us this evening. If you missed our live last night, we interviewed Dr. Pamela Denise Long. She's running for U.S. Senate in the state of Illinois. She's running for the Republican nomination. And then a few days before that, we did live interviews with Patricia Easley and with Christine Maxwell. They are both Black Republican women who are running for office. And tonight, we're bringing you another live interview with another very superlative, venerable candidate whom I have had the opportunity to interview several times on my terrestrial radio show. There's also a video of another interview I did with this candidate. This is Stephanie Trussell. Welcome this evening to the David Seaton Show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. Last time we talked about everything from Walmart to custom-made couches. So I can't wait to see where we go today.
We did talk about custom-made couches. Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah.
Well, before we start, and we already have a comment from someone. AJ Gupta says, "Go Stephanie."
Oh my gosh. Well, he's another great candidate that's running for state rep. He's just west of me in Naperville area. He and his wife are phenomenal. I'm very excited. There are actually 8 candidates, state rep candidates in DuPage County. Well, I call it, I'm stealing this from J.B. Pritzker. He called it Blue Page County back in 2022. That's what it's like. But with the 8 great people that are running, I'm very inspired to believe this could be the cycle that we could get a little bit closer to being at the negotiation table because, the Democrats have a super duper majority in Springfield, and we got to do something about that. If we can just win a few seats, at least we'll get to the negotiation table. We may not flip it where we're in the majority this cycle, but if they have to talk to us, because my former state rep told me at a coffee house in my town once in 2022, she said, we have super duper majority. She probably just said super, I'm adding the duper. She said, we have super majority. We don't even have to talk to the Republicans. And I'm like, wow. She said the quiet part out loud. They don't even need Republicans to pass anything. So that's why we're all out here fighting. And we're out here trying to do whatever we can to make Illinois a place people move to and not from.
That's an excellent point. So let everyone know, how's the campaign going? The primary is going to be on Tuesday, on St. Patrick's Day. How's everything going?
Isn't that comical in a city that celebrates St. Patrick's Day like no other? Let's put Election Day on that day. And usually by 9 a.m., people are vomiting green beer in the street. But luckily, they moved the parades to the weekends. Well, I am very fortunate in this cycle, along with my other peers that are running for state rep in DuPage. We don't have a primary. So we're focusing on getting our name out and working together, coming up with ways to help each other because I won't know it is until Election Day, because the woman, Tara Costa Howard, that had the seat for a couple cycles, she was promoted to judge. And on October 12th, they appointed a woman to finish out her term. So she's in a primary against another woman who's on the DuPage County Board. And so as I ride through my district, I see they're battling signs on each side of the street because they're in a very contested, heated primary. So I look forward to the 17th when I'll know exactly who I'm running against. But I mean, I'm running against the party. I know what they're all about, raising taxes and just the usual Democrat platform. But I just don't have that heat of the campaign on my neck yet, because again, I'm very fortunate not to have to spend money in a primary against another Republican at this time.
So you're the only Republican, you're the only nominee on the Republican side.
Yes, in the Illinois. I'm sorry, I'm running in the Illinois House District 42. I think you said that, but just I have to get in a habit.
That's on the thumbnail. I had to announce that to everyone.
Very good. Illinois House out in DuPage, which the areas that it includes, a little bit of Naperville, a large part of Glen Ellen, Lombard, and Lisle, like one district in Downers, and a little bit of Wheaton. I live in Lisle. I moved here in 1994. When I had 3 kids, and now I have 5. And actually all 5 of my kids graduated from Lisle High School, which is this great, a small entity. It has less than 500 kids. We're surrounded by all these giant high schools, and here we are, this tiny little high school where the principal knows everybody's name. And I'm very pleased to announce that my granddaughter is at the exact same school district where her parents met. So it gives me a lot of
Wow.
pleasure when I get to pick her up from the same elementary school that all of my kids went to. So I love Lyle. I always tell people it's the best kept secret in DuPage. I know you live in Naperville, and I love living next to Naperville because I get to take advantage of all the restaurants and everything you have there. And your rep, that Block 59 is just
They've
wow.
done
It's
it.
giving Oak
But
Brook a run for its money. I mean, every restaurant you could think of is at Block 59.
you make a great point, but I'm going to touch on that in a minute because you and I are both business owners and I want to touch on that. But you
Yeah.
mentioned something before. You mentioned taxes.
Yes.
If there's one, I haven't seen a tax that the Democratic supermajority has not wanted to pass, or at least proposed a bill for in Springfield. And now they are trying to pass something, they're trying to get it through right now, where they want to raise the minimum wage in the state of Illinois to $27 an hour. So you've got
Unbelievable.
California, you've got California trying to raise it to 25, Chicago in the middle trying to raise it to 27, and then New York on the East Coast trying to raise it to 30. As a business owner, what's wrong with that approach to minimum wage?
Well, I don't have the um, benefit of a college education, and so I haven't taken an Econ 101 course, but I just was blessed or cursed with common sense. So if you're going to raise it to 25 or 30, make it 100. I mean, it's these numbers make no sense because we shouldn't call it a minimum wage. We should call it a starting wage. And if you're like me, who got my first job at 14, my first real job at 15, you get the job when you're young, and then you keep getting promoted. And by the time you're married and have kids, you're making more than that original starting wage. But they have to understand that the wage should connect with the value of the job that you're doing. And if you're passing out flyers or handing people shopping carts at the Walmart, that's not worth $25 an hour. If you have a skill that's worth 25, 30, yeah, go out and get one of those jobs. It's so basic to me, but they don't care. And I guess they are relying on people not being, I'm not going to say educated, but not understanding how it works. That if I pay you more, $25 just to say hello, welcome to Boss Dogs and make a hot dog, well then the hot dog won't be $6.96 where you get a full hot dog and a lot of fries at our restaurant. It'll be a lot more than that. And we need to he who controls the language wins the argument, and we need to call it a starting wage, not a minimum wage.
You know what's so interesting about you saying that? Because you and I are both old enough to remember when there were dollar menus at
Oh my
restaurants,
gosh.
whether it
Yes.
was Wendy's or Burger King or
McDonald's.
McDonald's or
Yes.
whatever.
Hmm.
I remember when I don't eat McDonald's, but I remember when
What?
McDonald's had the two. No, I don't eat McDonald's. It's poison. But I remember when McDonald's had the 2 for $2 or the daily double,
Yes.
whatever they called it.
Hmm.
And people don't understand. They don't seem to make the connection that if McDonald's and Wendy's and Burger King and all of these other companies have to pay people 15, 16, $17 an hour, they can't do that and also give you a dollar menu.
They just haven't made that connection. And I think about it, my first job made with McDonald's on First and Lake. I was 15 years old. My mom, fixed my birth certificate so I could start working before 16. And I remember sitting in the lobby waiting for the manager to interview me. And there was some kind of leak, a hose had come undone. So there was like an inch of water. And this young girl was going back and forward to the drive-through, taking those orders back in the old days before it was all computerized. And all I wanted to do when I got the job is to be the fastest, best, just most efficient, most valuable employee. That's all. Even working at McDonald's, I wanted to be the best. And if you have that attitude, I've never had a job where I didn't get promoted. If you have that attitude, no matter where I'm starting, I'm going to be so awesome that they can't live without me. And I remember working at McDonald's one day, we hit the goal of servicing 100 cars in 1 hour. Just think about that. How many cars are going through so fast? And again, this is all before computerized systems. Now they are robots making the drinks and you got a computer. This was old fashioned 1980 when I started in 1980. And that's what I loved about hard work paying off. By the time I was 17, I was a crew chief, and they sent me off to Hamburger U when I was 18, and I passed on the first try. All I wanted to do was be the best and keep moving up. And my goal one day was to work for the McDonald's Corporation. Of course, life took me in a different path. But what I love about McDonald's is that at one point, I think Turner was his last name. He started as a fry person. I mean, how many companies where you can start literally at the bottom and work your way up to CEO? And that's what America's all about. If you just work hard, there's nothing you can't do.
That's such a great point, and that's another. When you mentioned a moment ago about the skills that's necessary for the pay that you get,
Mhm.
Democrats make this argument that, hey, the cost of everything is going up, so people should automatically just make more money. But I always use this example when I talk to people on my terrestrial radio show, and I ask people, hey, do you have somebody cut your grass? And they say yes, and most people say yes. I say, well, how much do you pay them? And they say, oh, I pay them, something like $20, $25 an hour. I said, well, what if your lawn care service showed up next week and said, hey, we've got this great new lawnmower, but I had another kid and my mortgage went up, so I'm going to charge you $100 to cut my grass, or for me to cut your grass now. That person would probably say, it's not worth it to me to pay $100 to have someone cut my grass. It's about supply and demand. I can find somebody who'll do it cheaper. It's the same thing with the labor market.
Mhm. Exactly. And it's just, again, making yourself just more valuable. I remember my mom, a single mom, dropped out of high school to have me. She did key punch operating and those kind of administrative jobs. But I remember her going to secretarial school to learn how to do shorthand and to become the best typist ever. She could type 80 words a minute, forgot how many, shorthand words she could do. And I just remember her going from just this mid-level job to when she got a job as administrative assistant at Western Electric. And when you live on the west side of Chicago, you get a job at Western Electric, you have made it. So all of a sudden we moved from the west side of Chicago and we moved to Rogers. No, we moved to Logan Square. We got this really beautiful apartment. All the walls were painted white and new and clean, all because she improved her skills. She could have just bemoaned and saying, oh, at one point, my mom was a manager at a Salvation Army at a used clothing store, and which at that time brought us in enough money to live, but she wanted to improve. And she's my greatest example of what you can do, even without a high school diploma. She went on to become this major executive assistant at a major corporation.
That's such a great story, and it's an inspirational story. I think too many young people today, and there's a plurality of people that just feel entitled,
Oh,
the world owes you something. And I tell people all the time, life isn't fair. You've got to get out there and make it happen.
Uh, by no means. And see, you keep talking about our age. I'm older than you, and I grew up on the west side of Chicago. And at 7 days a week, I took the Pulaski bus or I took the train. And back in those days, people would get on the train hustling. And I have this in my notes. I can't wait to talk about this on my campaign trail. But part of our culture was everybody had a full-time job, but they also had a hustle. And so when you would get on the bus, there would be somebody with clips and they'd have socks. And the slogan was $1 wallet with a phone book in it. So people were hustling and just figuring out a way to make it. And even my stepdad, he worked at a factory, but on weekends he'd make up all these dinners, and every Friday rather he'd sell fish dinners or he'd sell something hustling. My mom, and even after she got the job as an executive assistant, she still wanted to hustle, trying to do better. So she sold things down in Maxwell Street at a table, and we go down and help her on the weekends. Everybody had that fire in their belly that I want to achieve the American dreams, and nobody's going to give it to me. I'm going to have to really just work hard. And it wasn't this entitlement. And I think about my mother, who I talk about a lot because she is my role model. She didn't sit down and say, this is what you do. She just showed us by doing it. Here she is, a 16-year-old orphan, gets pregnant with me and drops out of school to provide an amazing life, private schools, dance lessons on Michigan Avenue. And all we never lived in public housing. And she just worked for it. She didn't sit around and say, oh, well, I'm in this situation, the government owes me something. But back in the day, if you got on the list for Section 8, it was like 10 years. So what's the incentive? You're thinking in 10 years, I know I'm going to be doing better than what I'm doing. But now you're right, David. These people think that we owe them something. The American people owe them something, and we don't owe them anything. I'm excited about the 250th year and birthday this year. Maybe people need to look back on how we started and what it meant that for us to be able to win our freedom from England and work really hard to make, to the frontiers and going out, working hard, establishing cities and which would become states. I mean, everything was about hard work in America. That's what we're built on.
I've got a question from you from the audience. Pata asked, why do you think the Democrats talk about Trump all the time, as opposed to focusing on how Democrats have ruined the lives of people in Illinois, particularly Black Illinoisans.
Oh, I love Batai. I'm a big listener to the station that your radio show is on, so I hear him all the time. So, I have 5 kids, and I tell people it's a numbers game. When you have 5 kids, you're going to get a socialist. I think I have 1.5 socialists, but my middle kid is so bright and loves to challenge me. He actually just called while we were talking, probably to tell me more about Trump. He wakes up in the morning. He knows exactly what Trump, I joke that he can tell you what Trump has for breakfast, but he doesn't know who his state rep is. It's such a
Mm,
distraction just to focus on hating someone. And I think about, when he came down that escalator, I was a Ted Cruz person, so I didn't like him, but I didn't hate him. When you hear the just is seriously TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, they hate him no matter what he says, no matter what he does. And it's such a distraction, unfortunately, for Black people. But if they were in a situation like me, I got to go and to CPAC, and I was had the pleasure. What's her, Marianne Johnson, the Black woman that was pardoned by Trump. And when you hear her story and read her book, and there's so many other incidents where Trump has done things for Black people. We know that Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton loved him until he came down that escalator. It's such an easy distraction for the Democrats to say, let's hate on this guy. He's a racist. He's this, instead of focusing on the fact that Trump has nothing to do with Chicago. He can't get past J.B. Pritzker. As he said, you're going to have to come through me. The policies that are ruining our state have nothing to do with Donald J. Trump. We're not living in a Trump economy. We're living in a J.B. Pritzker economy. And a city like Chicago that's been ruled by the Democrats since the 1930s, almost 100 years of ruling one of the greatest cities in the Union. And it looks nothing like the city that I grew up in. And when J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson get up and talk about how great Chicago is, it makes me so angry. Because the last time I was on the radio station with you, I took the train down. And when you get off the train and you're walking down State Street, that was that great street. Not one, when I grew up there in Chicago, there was not one empty storefront. It's garbage, empty storefronts, and graffiti. And there was a McDonald's on every corner. You could hardly find a McDonald's now. I remember when you could get on the L train and actually doze off and take a nap. I would do that all the time as I rushed from my all-girls school on the Southwest Side in Marquette Park. As I went out to my McDonald's job out in Maywood, I would sleep on the train and bus all the time. And now it's one of the most dangerous places is public transportation in the city. So you can talk about Trump all you want to, but on Labor Day weekend, 54 people got shot, I believe, had nothing to do with Donald J. Trump.
Correctional officer, I want to get to immigration and I want to get to education in a moment, but correctional officer, he asked your opinion about DuPage Under Sheriff Edmund Moore and whether you think he's going to win the nomination for governor.
Oh, you mean, well, you mixed up two things. So Ed Moore is the deputy sheriff right now who's running
Yeah.
to replace the sheriff, who the sheriff is running for governor.
Right.
So that's
Okay.
why. So it's kind of, he's Sheriff Moore, I'm sorry, the assistant deputy sheriff, I guess.
The sheriff who's actually running for governor, he's actually going to be on my show tomorrow on VON.
Mendrick.
So, yeah, Mendrick, yes.
Mendrick. He has done a phenomenal job of keeping DuPage safe, law and order. What I'm very impressed with him at our jails, he has all these programs where he's trying to make sure these people don't end up coming back to jail. He wants to help them get their GED, help them get a skill. He even has a program to remove their gang-affiliated tattoos to give them a fresh start. We've got some great people running in right now. They have a deep bench of candidates. Since I'm running as state rep, it's hard for me. I'm just trying to keep my head up and focus on mine and not really endorse in candidates or say anything. I think we've got some great people to pick from, and I'm looking forward to Tuesday, and we'll see who our nominee will be, because the main thing is that we work together and we defeat J.B. Pritzker.
Nope, I just wanted to give Pata the respect since he's watching. I wanted to give him the respect of asking the question. Before we get to immigration, let me ask you about this. I'm an avid Second Amendment person. As a matter of fact, before I was able to go to the barber a little earlier than normal, so I was able to stop at Range USA and to test fire my new 12 gauge semi-automatic Beretta. So I'm a second, Ultima Patrol for everybody out there who's wondering. But I'm an avid Second Amendment person. If there's one amendment, if there's one guarantee in the Bill of Rights that blue states and blue cities love to trample, it is the Second Amendment. And the Second Amendment is unique because it specifically says that the rights that you have under the Second Amendment will not be infringed. Illinois, California, New York, they may as well just ban guns altogether as far as they're
If they
concerned.
could, don't
What are
give
your
them any
thoughts?
ideas. Right. You know, I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm kind of a nerd. I like to watch old shows. Right now, I'm streaming, kind of binge watching Little House on the Prairie. I didn't watch it when it was on 50 years ago. I don't know why. But when you watch them out there on the frontier, and I think about that in the cowboy days, and there were you couldn't call the police. You had a responsibility to be able to protect your family. I mean, that's just given. And one thing that I know Sarah Palin's a trigger for a lot of people. When the first time I saw her speak, she said something that resonated with me. She said, I carry a gun because a policeman's too heavy. Even if the response time is 10 seconds, that's too late. You have a responsibility to not, you don't care about your stuff. Come in and take the TVs, that's replaceable. But you need to be able to protect your family. And it's just so sad these blue states want to take away your right to protect your family, remove your gun, and then they want to defund the police. And then they want to defund ICE. So we'll just be out here just with what? A lot of pepper spray and some marshmallow guns, or I guess a bunch of what are they? Oh, social workers will show up and calm the situation. It's very important to be responsible gun owners. I moved to Arizona for 2 years. It was very different to go into a Walmart and see open carry. And you'll see, I saw this guy, I had my son Reagan with me at the time, he was 10, and we saw a dad with his two kids. And I said to Reagan, that's the guy you want to be standing next to if something happens. If somebody comes in here and something jumps off, you want to be by him. So it was very different to live in an open carry state and then to come back here where you got to get a FOID card and you got to get this. And they make it so hard. You just want to protect yourself. And when you're riding on the CTA and all those places you go to, they have a little sticker that says no guns allowed. And I'm thinking, well, the bad guys are not going to be intimidated by that sticker. You have a responsibility.
That's exactly my point. And that's why I can't embrace the Democratic approach, because what you just said, the 15 round magazine capacity they have in the state of Illinois, semi-automatic shotguns, you're limited to 5 rounds. Like you said, they're defunding the police. Someone's not going to come carjack you or me and then look at their gun and say, "Oh, I've got 17 rounds in this magazine. I can't carjack her right now."
Bullet out of the clip. And the person that Brandon Johnson, you have been going hard on Brandon Johnson on your YouTube channel, and it just cracks me up.
Absolutely.
You're with the facts. We got to keep it coming, because unfortunately, this is a one-termer. We hope that this is it. But this person in 2020, all about defunding the police, and now he's about defunding ICE. So Lori Lightfoot had 99 police officers on her 24-hour rotation protecting her. She's an elected official. I'm not begrudging that. And Brandon Johnson said, 99, please, hold my beer. He has 150 officers on his rotation, but he's wanted to defund the police back in 2020. And I'm just like, what? They say defund the police, but not my security team, or not on my detail, which is so okay. Let them be hypocrites like that. But don't the voters get angry and say, well, how come he gets this, or they get to do that, but they want us to get on the L train, even though J.B. Pritzker rides the L train and he says it's quite safe. Yeah, right. It's just, hey, voters, Democrat supporters, just hold them accountable when they're imposing these rules that they don't even follow.
What is your thought before we get to immigration? Because someone earlier said, you mentioned about Chicago, but it's been the collar counties as well. I remember when DuPage County was a solid red county.
Oh my goodness.
And it slowly drifted to the left.
Yes, slowly. It was when we moved here in 1994, 100,000 Republicans, the largest Republican county in the country. I just become a Republican. We moved out here from Rogers Park, which is very different from DuPage County. And I just felt secure knowing that I live in a red county. This is cool. And you had signs that said, if you love DuPage, thank a Republican. And then one day I looked up the day after election day and a Democrat was my representative. I was so confused. I couldn't even process that. What happened? But DuPage County is, as you know, affordable. It's accessible to the city. At the time, the schools were phenomenal. It's a great draw for people instead of moving up north along the North Shore where the taxes or whatever. But back in the 90s, 2000s, this is a place to move to, like I did. And all of a sudden, the people that moved here for a better quality of life brought their voting habits here. And all of a sudden, we looked up our board is mostly Democrats, and it's just I don't understand that, and so that's why I'm fighting. But you know, Democrats, I give them their flowers, as they say. When they see, they looked at DuPage and said, "Oh, that's the reddest county in the country." They didn't say, "Oh, we don't have a chance." They kept chipping away, kept running people, and then you look up and they're in control. But see, we don't think like that. When I had my radio show, and I won't say it was one of the Republican leaders. I had him on my show back when Lori Lightfoot and that whole 17 people were running in the primary. So he opened my show. It was his first question. He's the leader of the Illinois GOP. I said, "Hey, where's our candidate for mayor?" And he was taken aback by that. And I just thought it was a good question. Well, and then, behind the scenes, Republican leadership, well, what's the point of running? I mean, we'll never win. No, you'll never win if you don't run a candidate. And if this time I'm talking to the Illinois GOP leadership, if they're watching this, if we don't have a candidate for mayor this time coming around, what are we doing? Because the 6%, 7% approval rating from Brandon Johnson, and we can't find somebody. I'm going to go back to an old TV show, Andy Griffith. We can't get like the town drunk like Otis and run him through a car wash and teach him how to read a teleprompter and say, "I'm a Republican and this is what we're going to do." No, we have a lot of wonderful qualified Republicans living in Chicago. I'm thinking about, hey, you, David, you're not a Republican, but do you have a tuxedo in a relative's house so you can come in and run as an independent? You can say that you kind of live in Chicago. I'm desperate, but we need to be like them. They're dogged at that. They will just see a county, that's their target, and they're going to work on it until they win.
Well, here's the interesting thing, though, about Black voters in particular. And I just mentioned this as an aside. And I went back and I looked at the voting habits of Black voters in America for president going all the way back to 1960. And there's been no presidential election where less than 72% of Black people have voted for the Democratic candidate. It was as high as 95%, I think it was, when Barack Obama ran. But when I hear Black people talk about the Democratic Party, it takes them for granted, and the Republican Party doesn't talk to them, it's because the Democrats know they've got that voting block locked up, and the Republicans don't have any confidence that they can chip away at that vote. And there are a lot of Black people who are conservative. And I, like you said, I think it's a missed opportunity for the Republicans to not come out and talk to people like you and me and Patah and correction officer, because we don't espouse Democratic ideology.
Right, exactly. I think about like slavery days, and how the Republican Party was formed by a bunch of abolitionists. They were fighting against slavery. So right after we were free, it wasn't acceptable for a Black woman to bring a man to meet her family unless they were Republican. And they're going to talk about the flip and all that. I just don't know when we sat down and forgave them for fighting a war for 4 years to keep us enslaved. And I just keep thinking, if Black people voted their values, I always remind people jokingly that I grew up Black because they think I'm a sellout because I'm a Republican. But there was a church on every corner, and these are the Pentecostal, just Bible thumping churches talking about your values. If we voted our values, there's no way we could go in and vote for the Democrat Party because their values don't align with what we were raised with our foundation. I give them, I don't know how they do it. How do they get them to loyally vote? But I remember what it was like being born and raised in Chicago in this packaging, and you're automatically a Democrat. And then once I started paying attention to the issues, I found talk radio, and I realized I was a Republican. I was afraid to say the word. You just can't come out at Thanksgiving dinner, pass the gravy, by the way, I'm a Republican, without a lot of backlash, because I wasn't the confident person I am now. I remember using the word conservative first before I came out of the closet as a Republican. But the more I got more involved with my faith and turn my life over and all the things we say, I realized the Republican Party was the only party that that aligned with my values, that I was really taken seriously. And I just don't understand how they get my people. I think about, let my people go. Stop telling them this isn't their country. Stop telling them that capitalism is a racist white system. Capitalism, helps a lot of people get you out of poverty, and it's what's wrong with capitalism. But it's just, I don't know how they have this stronghold and they've been able to hold on, given that the results are what we have in all the major cities: Philadelphia, Chicago, Detroit, and every city that's ruled by the Democrats. Blacks are disproportionately suffering.
And that's because Democrats, there's one thing that Democrats always promise Black voters or their Black constituents. They always promise them programs. And programs create dependency. One of my favorite Black philanthropists is John Hope Bryant. And he says, he has this phrase I love. He says, before you can spend money like a socialist, you have to earn it like a capitalist. And you look at Zoran Mamdani. Oh, we're going to give free buses and we're going to give free childcare, and nothing is free. It might be free to the recipient, but someone else has to pay for it.
One of my favorite economists, Steve, I can't think of his name. He's always on the show that I listen to. Steve Moore. Okay, he put it like this: if there's two people on an island and one person gets $25, where did they get the $25 from? The other person. And to think that we can just focus on what's your platform as you're a Democrat right now. I hate Trump and we're going to tax the rich. What did the rich people do to you? Why should you tax them? What is like a fee for being successful? How dare you? So we're entitled to your money. I just don't understand that programming, they program them to think that the only reason that they're not doing well is because we haven't taxed the rich people enough. And we know, David, if we confiscated 90% of all rich people's income, and it was $1 billion, the Democrats would spend $1,002,000,002. We would still be in a deficit. It's not about, because they never cut. They just continually spend, and we haven't figured that out yet. And they don't run the government like you would run a business where you have to meet a budget. And people that work in the government, people watching know people that work in the government. If they have money at the end of a fiscal year, what do? They order more paper, they buy supplies, because if you don't spend all the money, they're going to cut your budget. Whereas in a business, that's a good thing. You're like, hey,
right,
we got extra money. But they don't think like that. They're like, nope, we want our budget to be more. And when it comes to schools, you said we were going to talk about schools. When all they say is that we need more funding for school, more money for schools. And you say, how much? And they just say more. We know Chicago is $30,000 per kid. The nuns educated us. I don't know how much.
CPS and CTU should be disbanded.
Oh my gosh.
Immediately. And to your point,
teachers. I got to say, we love teachers.
Right, absolutely.
We love teachers, right?
Absolutely. But let me say this, but to your point about running this like a more of a business, you only have 15% of students, Black students, in Chicago public city schools who can read and do math at grade level.
Unbelievable.
Gavin Newsom, he was at a Black church down in Atlanta a few weeks ago, and he said, hey, I only got a 960 on the SAT. I'm just like you. And everybody was attacking him, saying, oh, he's racist. But I didn't respond emotionally like I do. I went and looked up the average SAT score for Black children in the United States, and it's 907. Yikes. We spend so much time talking about, you got CPS taking kids out of school to go march against ICE, and they can't read and do math.
That's one of the most racist things, that Black kids are being denied a quality education, whether they're going to go off to college, trade schools, or get a good job. What if Joe Biden say at Reverend Jackson's funeral, I'm just as smart as you? You know what? They just talk. They're so worried that a white Republican might be racist that they let the Democrats just treat them any kind of way. And when you look at the studies that show how many administrators, how many teachers that teach, that are part of the unions of CPS, send their kids to either an elite school or private school, they would never have their kids, not their precious little cherubs, would be in steerage with all the other people. And I had a radio show for 7 years, and one of my favorite things was invite Democrats into my studio. And during the commercial breaks, I would always innocently ask, "Oh, what school do your kids go to?" The answer was always the Academy of the Elite. You got to know somebody to get in. That's what it was at. I'm like, I never even heard of that school. And this would be it's a public school. But I was like, yeah, you kind of have to know somebody to get in there. It's not the regular schools. And you and I live in a town. You live in Naperville. Amazing high schools. I have one high school in my town. I can imagine that if I lived in a town and there were two high schools and they said, that's the good high school and that's the bad one, you'd be upset because we're all paying taxes. What do you mean? How is it acceptable to have Whitney Young in the same school district with schools with there's 30 kids in the school that was built for 1,000 and nobody in the building is proficient in math and reading? How are they existing in the same school district?
You're actually referring to a school that's on the west side, I believe it is. They have, like you said, like 30 or 32 students. And the irony is that school is called Douglas College Preparatory Academy.
You can't give them enough names. You get add all these adjectives on it, and this is going to be great. But they have that moratorium. Rahm Emanuel
about closing schools, right?
He closed 50 Black and brown schools. I listen to the same radio station that you're on, and so now you can't close schools no matter what. It could be, and if this was a business, IBM or any other major corporation, and the building's half empty and it's not functioning, but you still have to pay for electricity and everything else to maintain that building. Can you imagine these once booming high schools that had 1,000 kids walking the halls? There's 30 people 30 students. I'm sure it's more staff than students, and we can't close those schools. That just doesn't make sense.
I've got this comment here. Bill Hubbard posted, Republicans who are truly conservative don't even attempt to go after the Black vote. As you know, we don't go where we're not wanted. And Bill, I want to thank you for posting that, because both Stephanie and I and Pata and some other people who are in the chat, we are proof that Republicans would get a larger share of the Black vote if they made the attempt, because the lack of making the attempt gives fuel to the accusation from Democrats that Republicans are racist. And it's really just that simple, isn't it, Stephanie?
Oh, for sure. And that's what they tell you. You're a Republican. Republicans are racist. And I, as a candidate for lieutenant governor 4 years ago, I wanted to go everywhere. I went on the west side. I started on 79th and Western one day and walked and drove all the way to 79th and Cottage, just talking to people. I love going to places where people look like me, because I want them to understand this is the party for us, not that party. But people would say to me at town halls, they would say, well, Stephanie, we only see the Republicans 3 months before elections. They're not around when, the rest of the time. And I took that to heart. After I lost, I started going to things. I've always been involved. I'll go because I had a radio show. I wanted to go places. I wanted to bring that content to my show. I'm not afraid to go to anywhere, and I'm excited about this opportunity. As a candidate, I'm going to reach out to all the Black churches. I joined the NAACP of DuPage County because I want people to know, because they tell me that it's a nonpartisan group, right, David? It's not partisan. So I'm going to prove that. I can't wait for my first meeting that I'm going to. One party takes it for granted and the other one just ignores it. They just want to be invited to the party. And I'm ready to invite them and say, come on over here. We've aligned. We care about schools. We care about immigration, which disproportionately affects the Black people. I know that you wanted to talk about immigration, and that's a hot topic. Even though I'm running for state rep, it still affects the state level.
Absolutely.
Democrats, we're a sanctuary state, we're a sanctuary city, and then when you actually sit people there, they want to roll up the welcome mat. I get so confused by that.
No, it's actually, when I have conversations on my radio show with people who live in Chicago, we talk about Chicago being a sanctuary city. The first thing they'll say is, well, Mayor Harold Washington is the one who made Chicago a sanctuary city. Like, if you say Mayor Harold Washington, then you can't criticize it.
Right.
And then Illinois became a sanctuary state under, I believe it was Bruce Rauner.
Mhm.
But
Oh,
ultimately,
so embarrassing. He was a Republican. You know.
Here's the challenge with Bruce Rauner, though, or any Republican governor.
Mhm.
We still see these super majorities in Springfield, so it really doesn't even matter
Right.
who the governor is at some
But
point
he
because
didn't have to give them everything, funding abortions and making us a sanctuary state as a Republican. My goodness, put up a little bit of a fight. But because I'm going to owe everything that learned because I was obsessed with the radio station that you're on. And I would listen to that station more than I listened to the station that I was actually on because I wanted to know what the other people were saying, people that don't agree with me. I can operate in this echo chamber. That's no fun. But I tell you, when those buses first started rolling in, I was listening to the midday show, and this dad called in, a black guy. He said, these buses are pulling up in my neighborhood, and all these grown men are getting off the buses. They hand them this like pack of toiletries, whatever. They go inside, they come out, hop on a bike, and they just disappear in my neighborhood. This was from a dad that was concerned. Who are these people? Who are the people that they're allowing and pouring into our neighborhoods disproportionately? My mom, as I keep talking about, lives in the city, and when it's a little hard to blend in a black neighborhood with you're a Hispanic immigrant and listening to just the crowded buses and all the resources and everything being stressed because these people are coming in. And I think about places, there were Jewels and Walgreens that have been abandoned for years, and the people in the community. Can we put a community center there? Can we put a senior center there? No, we don't have the money. But they found the money to make migrant centers. People that are descendants of enslaved Americans, I'm assuming you are, who helped build this country. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment was written for us. Come here legally. It's just unfortunate that I don't know how many, that they put all these migrant centers in black neighborhoods. How many are in JB Pritzker's neighborhood is my question. Whatever policies that you want to roll out, let's try it in your neighborhood first. Because if the kids can't read, and now we have ESL, so the resources are getting stretched because they can't teach our kids how to read better because now they got to teach people how to speak the language and then read. It come here. America's the great melting pot, but you have to come here legally.
I agree with you 100%. And that's the opportunity because unless and until we get some closer to a 50-50 split between Republicans and Democrats in Springfield,
Mhm.
we're going to continue to see this radical, far left progressive agenda that
Mhm.
just says everybody. I love this saying that they love to say is no one is illegal on
Oh my
stolen
gosh.
land.
Right. But I don't see them trying to give their stolen land back to the Native Americans. I don't see that. It's just such a ridiculous thing.
Stephanie, Stephanie, I said that to someone who was talking about reparations on my
Uh-huh.
show
Oh,
on Friday,
uh-huh.
and I
Mhm.
asked that person, if the government gives you reparations, are you going to give part of your money to the American Indians? And that person was
Right.
like, they need to get their own money.
Oh
It's
no,
just
this
so.
is all stolen land. And you know what? You think about this super duper majority that we have and in Illinois right now, and they love reparations. Why won't they propose reparations for Illinois? They have nowhere to push back. They can make it happen if they truly wanted black people to have reparation of what's due them. There's nothing holding them back because they only want to talk about reparation when a Republican's in charge. And then when they don't have the power to do anything, oh, we should do reparations. I mean, it's so. And one of my friends nationally, Kathy Barnett, she's phenomenal. She asked me about Evanston one night, and then I looked on her show, and she sent me the link. She covered Evanston and the reparations there. 44 people in Evanston have received reparations. The money comes from weed money, and Kathy broke it down that disproportionately black people buy weed, so they're basically paying for their own reparations. There's other drugs that more white people do, cocaine or whatever. So it's just the most ridiculous thing that this thing they dangle. We're going to give you reparations. Just go. My reparations was being born in America, having the opportunity to achieve the American dream. My ancestors helped build this country. That's my inheritance. I don't need the government to give me anything because David, you're smarter than I am in your show. You're all about statistics, and I just love listening to you. But I haven't figured out how they're going to give me, the descendant of enslaved American, how they're going to give me money without taking money from me, the taxpayer, out of the other pocket. So when they figure that out, let me know.
Absolutely, you're because that's the connection people don't know or don't
Mhm.
don't think about is that
Yep.
reparations would come from federal taxes, so you're paying yourself.
Right.
Just
And
completely ridiculous.
they think there's this big empty building, this big building filled with money that says reparations. They don't understand that the government doesn't make widgets. Any money they have, they've confiscated it. If they made something, that we needed, shoelaces or something, and they could sell more shoelaces, no, they have to confiscate more money from hardworking people. And they keep promising. J.B. Pritzker is known for this. And Brandon, we got to go after the rich. But every tax they propose is little nickel and diming us with Netflix tax and highest cell phone tax, highest property taxes. They never go after the rich. They talk about it, but they actually never do.
Here's the little known secret, and I can't wait until I am in a debate with a Democrat. Hopefully, I'll be
Oh,
able to interview Brandon Johnson. But
oh,
the
you think
next,
he'll do it?
I don't think so.
The best you can hope for, I'll let you finish, is that you guys get stuck in the elevator together.
But here's the little known secret, and people like you and I are in the top 10% of income earners in the United States. The top 10% of income earners pay 72% of the federal taxes. So when you hear these idiots say tax the rich and corporations, how much more do you want?
It's unbelievable that they haven't figured that out. Again, I haven't taken an Econ 101 course, and I have, as I said, my 5 kids. My socialist is supposedly the most brightest. He got the highest ACT scores. And when he talks about back in the day when they used to confiscate 90% of rich people's income. But I said, what would be your incentive to be a rich person, a successful person? If you know when you make it to this level, why should you invent the next widget or whatever? Because they're going to come after you. And I am so fortunate to be on this journey right now running for office. And I get to go to candidate forums where their Democrats are there. So we were at this cool high school and they had both parties represented. Then we had our table set up like a trade show. And so I noticed this one guy, his platform was tax the rich. Before I could get back to my table, I had to go over and talk to him. And this is on his campaign sign. I said, well, my husband and I own this little hot dog restaurant and we hope to buy a couple more. Are you going to come after us when we open our 3rd Boss Dogs? And he says, oh, no. I'm talking about the super rich. And so I'm like, you need to give me a number. I said, well, how much what's a super rich? Anybody making 30 million. I said, so $29.99.99, you're okay. You make that extra dollar, or they're going to come for you. None of what they talk about makes sense. Stop talking about tax the rich. How about we cut the fat, the waste, fraud, and abuse? And I know what happened in Minnesota. We think that's horrible.
Yes.
Minnesota, they're pikers compared to Illinois. There's some Democrats and maybe Republicans too, whoever here, that are on the griff, on the dole. They're just holding their breath, just saying, oh my goodness, Nick Shirley, please don't come here. Because we have it down to science when it comes to defrauding programs and bloating budgets. Come on now. I hope
to your point about that, I have a very close friend, a female friend of mine who works at Aldi. And she told me the other day that a Latino woman came into Aldi, didn't speak English, was using her EBT card. She bought whatever she bought, and it showed the available balance was $4,100 and some change.
And, back in the day when you came to Ellis Island, you had to have a sponsor to come here legally. And you had to promise that you were not going to take advantage of any of our programs. Now they come here door wide open, and they come here. Who's paying for this $4,100 in whatever she's getting? We are. And are you kidding me? We have homeless veterans sleeping on our streets right now. And it's not that we're not compassionate, but David, that's like you taking your money and giving 90% of it to a charity before you pay your mortgage or your utilities. It's a good gesture, but you need to take care of home first. America first, that sounds disconnected. No, Americans first. We got to take care of our own before our ship is going to sink, or we're taking on more people than what we can hold.
Well, when you listen to people like Karen Bass, a mayor of Los Angeles, or Brandon Johnson, mayor of Chicago, or Zohran Mamdani, mayor of New York, they're convinced to themselves that if your feet are within the city limits of this city, then I'm going to take care of you. But no, you're spending other people's money to do it. And to that point, Illinois tried out, or Cook County tried out this the UBI, where they gave a few thousand people $500 a month for 2 years. I just read today they want to roll that program out statewide, and they want to get, their goal is to give 100,000 people $500 a month in perpetuity. That's $600 million a year. And to your point, what you just said a moment ago, once they get to 100,000 people, well, why not 200,000 people? Why not 300,000 people? And all we have to do is just take some more money from the rich, so we can give people free money to not do anything. It's just infuriating.
And again, I love debating with my middle kid because he's so brilliant. And I keep telling him, you're too smart to be a Democrat. He'll say, Mom, we need to give everybody a living wage. Even Oprah, everybody just gets some money and we just give it to him. And he can't explain where this comes from necessarily, but he just feels that we're entitled to it. And he's all in. What I've learned, I spend time with him when I go out and visit him in Arizona, and my granddaughter. I'm visiting my granddaughter and I tolerate him. And as we were pulling into his apartment last time, it hit me as the gates opened. I said, wait, you're for open borders, but you live in a gated apartment complex. And they just cracked me up. Rules for me and not for thee. And he still hasn't explained to me where this money is coming from and how, well, they'll say, well, we have so much money. No, the government, again, doesn't make widgets and doesn't have money. We have so much debt right now. We don't have a lot of money. And whenever he talks about when it was 90% confiscation of rich people's money, what did we do before there was an income tax? Do people understand at some point there was no income tax?
Well, to your point, in 1913, the 16th Amendment was passed. In 1913, the 16th Amendment was passed, and that created the first federal income tax. Take a guess at what percentage of income was taken when the 16th Amendment was passed.
I'm going to say they were so conservative and so guarded that they went with 1%.
It was 1%. And a marginal rate of 6% in 1913. And by the time John F. Kennedy became president in 1960, which was only from 1913, that was only 47 years later, it had gone up to a 90% marginal rate. That's why fair-minded people don't support tax the rich, because we know, based on history, eventually it's going to trickle down to the rest of us.
Because they're going to run out of rich people to tax, and then they're going to go to the next level. And it was never about them. It's about all of us. We all have to just give a little bit more. It's just unbelievable that. How do you get people to understand that? But again, we're going back to education, teaching them economics, basic economics, and teaching them right now. What saddens me is that they're not teaching people to love America. They're not teaching these kids to be proud of America. And it's always the sin of slavery. And I encourage everyone to go to Washington, D.C., go to the African American History Museum and take the tour. And when they show you on the wall this giant map of the world and every little light denotes how many slaves, America, we were pikers compared to the rest of the world. They act as if we invented slavery. Slavery has been in the Bible. And so that was a sin that everybody participated in it. When we knew better, we did better, but it's still the greatest country on the planet. People die and walk across a desert to get here. People hide in the belly of a boat. Our ancestors.
Stephanie, when I talk about slavery, I remember I had this conversation with a younger cousin of mine. And I told, he was all about, 1619, and the United States is this horrible, racist country, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And I told him, did you know that from the 12th century to the 15th century, the Ottoman Empire enslaved Europeans from as far east as Russia and as far west as Iceland? And there are some historians that say that there were more white slaves under the Ottoman Empire, and the Ottoman Empire was, basically Northern Africa. There are some historians that say that the Ottoman Empire had more white slaves than the Americas had black slaves, but the numbers are not even important, because, to your point, the United States had slavery in a time where slavery was legal globally, and there are 50 million slaves on the earth today. Nobody's trying to free them.
It's so funny. They act as if only Black people were oppressed. I remember learning that song, "No Irish Need Apply," back in the turn of the last And
Used
what
to
has
say
happened,
no Irish, no Mexicans, no blacks.
right? And I remember, if you go on YouTube, you can probably search it. Frank Sinatra did a PSA talking about racism and how Italians were being treated. Everybody was mistreated to a certain degree, and we're not going to have the oppression Olympics. Who was most mistreated? It was an ugly time, and when we did better as a result of something so ugly as slavery, I get to be an American citizen. I'm not going to waste the inheritance of all my ancestors that worked hard and died or whatever to build this country by saying that someone owes me something, or this isn't my country. When they say this country isn't for you, the Constitution was written by white slave owners. It was, at the time, it was legal, but it just blows me away that that's why I can't get on the bus at 15th and Pulaski like I used to and feel safe because of white slave owners. We had everything. We built our own. We had grocery stores on every corner. When you would go in and buy a soda and chips, whatever, back when I was a kid, the people behind the counter looked like us, and we owned things and we took pride in things. It's different now because everybody feels somebody owes them something. And now when I go into a grocery store at neighborhoods that I grew up in, people don't look like me. Everything's bulletproof and it smells like tainted meat and sour
Mm,
mops. And that's not how I grew up. I would just love being a West Sider. I would tell everybody, hi, I'm from the West Side. I had such pride in what it meant to be in the community where I would earn my McDonald's paycheck and I would walk 4 blocks up to Madison and I would spend my money in my community because almost every store that was on State Street was right there in my community. And what
right.
happened to those days? Taking pride in what we have. And we know, David, that's a whole nother show. Break
Sure.
down the family. Once you remove the protector
Yes.
from the family, everything else crumbles.
Well, here's the good news. Since you are running unopposed,
Oh, yeah.
we know that you're going to be the Republican nominee for
Yes.
District 42. And
Yes.
so we're going to wait and find out who gets the Democratic nomination on the other side.
Mhm.
And I'm saying to your opponent, whoever that person is, you are invited back to the David Seaton show so
Oh,
I can host a debate between you and
oh,
your opponent.
that would be fun. Yeah.
That would be
And
very fun.
oh my goodness, I love debating. That's why I love following the station that you're on, because I love talking to them debating. It's kind of boring to sit around and just talk to people that agree with you. I'm very excited to make an announcement. Because I'm a candidate, I'm in a position where I have to rent an hour of radio starting the Sunday after the debate. I'm sorry, after the primary. I wish it would be great if we had a debate. I will be on Sunday nights from 7 to 8 on AM 560 WIND. 1 hour of just come in and stand there, talk, and get back on the highway. Because I know the Republican Party has the best platform, but it's the best kept secret. I cannot wait to use my skills as a radio host to talk about my campaign and also to interview people like a Jay and the other people that I have met on this journey. And I've met some phenomenal Republicans that are doing this for all the right reasons. So on Sunday nights from 7 to 8, I will be on AM 560. I cannot wait. And if you want to support me, of course, every little bit helps. It's TrussellForIllinois.com. And I long for the day to have a debate with my Democrat opponent. And I haven't had, this is my first time running alone. Now, last time I ran as a lieutenant governor candidate, and in the primary, the Republicans got kind of a little bit against, me as well as my running mate. So when we won the primary, the top of the ticket was the focus of
Sure.
JB or whatever. So I've never
Sure.
had a Democrat come for me, as the kids say. So I'm just like, are they going to interview my kindergarten teacher and say that I colored outside the lines or whatever I did? I don't know what the debate is going to be. Of course, they're going to say she's a Trumper, and it's so funny. I was dragged at 4 years ago for being a never Trumper by the Republicans. It's so crazy, and I know they're going to say she loves Donald J. Trump or she's good. And when I was knocking doors getting signatures, hi, I'm Stephanie Trussell. I'm running. Would you like to sign my petition? What are you going to do about Orange Man? Or they'll get in my face and scream to me about it. I really watch their, like a thermometer get redder and redder. And I just tell people, oh, ma'am, sir, I'm running for state rep. I'm going to Springfield. I won't be going to DC. And Donald J. Trump doesn't have any more elections left. And I'm not going to vote for a third term for Donald J. Trump. And you don't need to vote for a third term for J.B. Pritzker. I'm trying to save the great state of Illinois. I'm not going to apologize for voting for Trump. They want you to. I don't agree with anybody 100%. I don't agree with myself 100%. I voted for him. He was our nominee. when it looked at the options that were on the ballot, I wasn't going to vote for Kamala. I wasn't going to vote for Joe Biden. And I'm not going to apologize for voting for Donald J. Trump. I'm just not going to do that. And you know what? It hurts my heart, David. I want everybody to come and sit down and talk to me and have a cup of tea. And I can explain what I'm going to do to help you with your taxes and small businesses and why I'm going to help restore this great state. But then I understand there's certain people that will never vote for me because I'm pro-life and I voted for Donald Trump, and I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not running on, I'm not going to show up with MAGA hats and I'm all about Trump is national. I'm trying to save the great state of Illinois. And that's it. Again, it breaks my heart. I wish everybody would give me a chance. I'm having 3 different meet and greets at 3 libraries. It's on my Facebook page. It's on everything. The day after the election, I want to go. I'm going to be in Lombard. You can come out to the library. I'm going to bake some treats because I'm a grandma. So I'm going to have some baked Democrats and Republicans to come out and just ask me questions. What are you going to do? Why are you running? And just get to know who I am and my character. And that's what I'm hoping. And I know it's going to be an uphill battle because, again, I live in Blue Page County. And there are a lot of Democrat signs in the yards as I ride through this, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, But I know what I'm up against. I have no, I'm not delusional. But again, I tell everybody I grew up riding the Pulaski bus 7 days a week. I'm up for a tough fight, and I just want to get out and share our platform and share our plans. And it's not about hating J.B. Pritzker. We actually have actual plans to lower taxes, to actually, look, we got to improve our schools, and especially disproportionately in the city of Chicago. But you know what? What I love about one of our candidates, Ted Dabrowski, running for governor, we all knew that there were struggles in Chicago public schools for Black kids, but his research, and I've been following him for years, he's told us that in Decatur, in Peoria, Black kids can't read down there. I'm like, how could this party, Democrats, always support the teachers union and public schools?
East St. Louis, Peoria,
read.
Springfield, Decatur, Cahokia. That's another Black area right outside.
Right. How are you going to fill out a job application? Maybe you're not going to go to college, but you can't even read and do math at basic at your grade level. But they're graduating kids at 90%. You're like, oh, look at our graduation rates. But then when you look at the math and reading proficiency scores, it's 48%. And you're like, so a bunch of folks are graduating and they can't read.
It's we're gonna, you know what, let's save that for next time, because you and I have been here for an hour. I want to be respectful of your time. No, I you and I could be on here all night. But
we haven't even scratched the surface. And I got to tell you, David, the couch behind me wasn't custom made. It's from IKEA.
Look, before I let you go, before I let you go, I for those of you who are unfamiliar, when Stephanie was on my terrestrial radio show, I was comparing how people get paid differently and people pay different price points. And I was saying, if you go to Ethan Allen, you might spend $10,000 furnishing a room because it's all custom made. But if you go to the Room Place or Bob's Furniture, you're only going to spend 10% of that. And so that was the larger a correctional officer at Alton, Illinois too. So yeah, that was always one of my favorite. I wasn't trying to brag or anything.
No. But we understand about paying for quality. And my comparison was, I like this particular popcorn popped by a farmer in Dwight. I won't buy microwave popcorn. I'll pay $10 to have it shipped because it's a good popcorn. And so I get you pay for quality things, and you get what you pay for in a lot of instances.
Absolutely. So I put the URL to your campaign website, TrussellForIllinois.com. So everybody go to that website. And do you have something where people can sign up or for a newsletter?
Well, yeah, there's opportunities to volunteer. And again, I'm renting my radio show. So I've got the cup out, passing the plate. I need people if $20 a month, if I can get 100 people to do that, that would be phenomenal. But the most important thing is that I want to have an opportunity at least once a week for an hour to talk about what we need to do to save great state of Illinois. And I just appreciate it. And every Friday at 3:04, my phone goes off to remind me, no matter what I'm doing, turn to David's show because you're going to get facts. And I love when he just opens it up and he's just inviting people that don't agree with him. And he just takes them out one at a time. Boom, boom, boom. And they just, I got him. And he just like, that's all you got. As I'm going to say,
Right.
I used to say, with half your brain tied behind your back, you just take them out one. Because you just come with the facts. They're showing up with emotions. And you're like,
Exactly.
well, here are the facts. And so that's what we need
Exactly.
to do, present the facts.
Well, let me say this for our listeners, and I'll make you this promise. Since you're going to be getting your nomination on Tuesday, I will set aside 1 hour per month between the primary and the election in November. That'll be my in-kind contribution so that we can continue to spread the word about you and your candidacy.
Oh, that's so awesome. And I'm just I want to talk to people because I got to believe at this point with the state of this what's going on in Illinois, there has to be some Democrats that are disenfranchised. And I want to
Yes.
reach out to everybody. If you live in Illinois 42nd district, come on over. Unlike the Republican Party has a reputation of not asking for your vote, I want to ask for your vote. I'm asking you for your vote because there are a lot of people that can't flee Illinois, and
Right.
we're going to stay here. We're going to fight, fight, fight. We have all the resources to be one of the top 5 states, and I want to make that happen. When I go to Springfield, I get goosebumps walking into the Capitol and the history, and we're the land of Lincoln. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
We've forgotten that. And no, I'm sorry. Go to Dixon, Illinois, and visit Ronald Reagan's house. I know he's a rich white Republican that doesn't care about us. That's not how Ronald Reagan was raised. If you go there and take the tour and find out about his childhood, his alcoholic father losing jobs, them getting evicted, we can relate to Ronald Reagan. And this is the greatest state in the Midwest, and there's no reason that our economic growth shouldn't reflect that.
Stephanie, as always, it is a pleasure. I will be back in touch with you so we can pick a day and and I want to make sure, because I want the people there's obviously people out here who are interested in your candidacy and hearing something different. And I want to help amplify that.
It's my pleasure. Anything for you, David. And I just look forward to an opportunity to talk to your audience, and keep it coming every Friday. And you got to tune in at 3:00 to listen to David and what he's saying.
Tomorrow is going to be another banger. So I will.
I can't wait.
Have a good one, Stephanie.
Thank you so much.
Bye. That's Stephanie Trussell, everybody. So again, thank you for hanging out. I've had an opportunity to interview 4 Black Republican women this week, and I want to keep having these conversations. The people who are on the left, the Juliana Strattons and the Robin Kellys, the Brandon Johnsons, they're not going to come and have conversations with me because I'm going to hold them accountable. And that's what I do, is I speak truth to power. I'm a conservative independent. I'm not a Democrat. I completely reject that ideology. And that's why I want to continue to have these live shows where people can interact. You can ask any questions that you want. That's really what this is about, is expanding the conversation and elevating the conversation. So I appreciate everybody hanging out. If you follow me, if you're not following me, hit that subscribe button, turn on your notification bell so you'll be made aware, because we're going to continue to do these live interviews. I've got some new content that's coming up on my show on the channel, and I also do a terrestrial radio show on WVON 1690 AM. That is on Fridays from 3 to 6. So tomorrow I am going to have the deputy, I believe he's the deputy sheriff of DuPage County. He's running for the Republican nomination for governor. He's going to be on my show. I'm going to have William Kelly, the reporter who you hear in those Brandon Johnson press avails where he takes him to task. And then I'm going to kind of do a summary of whom I believe is going to win the Democratic nomination. So again, I'll just tease it like that. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. So it's going to be a jam-packed show. We're going to be, again, speaking from a conservative point of view. And I will also be on WVON Tuesday on election night. I'll be covering that election live again. So you can always go and listen to WVON on iHeartRadio. You can listen to it on Facebook, or you can go to iTunes, or you can go to WVON.com and you can listen there. So there's a bunch of different ways you can do that. I appreciate everybody for hanging out. I appreciate the comments. And AJ, you said, I believe you said you emailed me, so I'm going to get in touch with you so we can do something here before the actual election on Tuesday. Patah, correction officer, Karen Hicks, everybody who's been participating, I appreciate it. Share the show, and again, turn your notification bell on so you'll know when the next show is coming up. It's going to be before the weekend is out. Everybody have a great night, and I'll catch you in the next one.